Second observation is that the handlebars are not perfectly centered.
Okay.
And 99% of bikes from the factory will come off center.
And from previous experience with you, we know that my shoulder is not square to my body. So that single bar could propose an issue for me.
Big issue. Because if that's true, you'd be sitting either like that or like that.
Right.
And so out of all the bikes I just did in Oregon, every single one of them with a standard handlebar, the rider was offset.
Okay.
But they had no idea because they didn't know to stand 6 foot behind the rider, sitting on the bike, and look at the gap between the elbow and the torso.
Okay.
Because part of my work is pay it forward. Well, pay it forward means observe and talk. So in this case, when we do get you sat on the bike, we've got to take a look at your elbows and see, do they match either side of your torso, irrespective of your injury. That's going to just mean your shoulder rotation position is going to change.
Got it.
Clutch lever's way higher than the brake lever.
Yes.
Okay, we can fix that. And then in terms of adjustability, we've got a preload adjustment here. The upper ring just locks this lower ring in place.
Correct.
We got rebound, we got fork preload, and we have a screw here for rebound, but I don't see compression anywhere. So, nope. No, there's a casting for it, but there's nothing there. So out of the gate, the good news is we can change the way the bike sits under its own weight. We can measure you to the bike, and we can, when we set spring tension, manage the energy release.
Okay.
Every bike off the showroom floor does this. And so, as you ride it, going into the corner, it does this, which means you do one or two things. You slow down, because it scares you to death. Or you man up and you grip those bars, and you get it through the corner, and then you go to the next corner and you do the same thing.
So I shouldn't be muscling my bike through corners.
No one should ever be gripping a bar at all for any reason. The only reason you grip something is because this is wrong, or as you're going, the back or the front are out of balance. And if you set anything, you have to make the bike do this, because we only got 2 wheels.
Right.
If you want to get seasick and be sponsored by Dramamine, carry on with a stock motorcycle. Right, so there's the first observation, and we can't see, but the chain's actually not too bad, because if the chain was wrong, we couldn't measure anything.
The chain was wrong. What do you mean?
If the chain was too tight and you sat on this, the chain would hold you up.
Oh, okay.
Because the chain was too tight. So free playing the chain's reasonable for the first part, which is measurement. So, all right. As that's pretty much topped out, every single person on the planet that owns a motorcycle should have a tape measure here so they can help somebody else. You have no excuses. If I find you without one, it's going to get ugly. So what we've got to do is measure how the shock and the bike sits by itself before Ralph goes on. So this is called setting sag. Sag being investment as you get older, or sag being sitting on something. So there's the bike under its own weight, and then there's the rider weight on that too. So we're going to go from 2 fixed points. So I'm going to go from there to there. We're in inches. We have 26 inches to there. All right, Ralph, take a seat. And with Ralph on the bike, irrespective of his weight for now, just looking at this, is that going to hold? Yeah. We should see 1.5 inches. So we're at 24.5.
Wow.
So at present, the back of the bike for your weight is reasonable. So go ahead and dismount. The other thing to note that the shock shaft here, there's a tiny, tiny portion showing of chrome tube, and that is extremely misleading because you probably have 4.5 inches of wheel travel.
Okay.
But the wheel travel goes that way, right? It goes in an arc. And you look at that and go, well, there's not 4 inches there. That's ridiculous. But the way the swing arm pivots creates the movement here, and you're bolted from the frame to the swing arm, so there's no linkage in the way. So sometimes you'll see a lot of chrome tube and sometimes you won't see very much at all. Do not freak out. It's fine. This is manufactured and engineered specifically to do the job, so it's odd, but it's not unusual. Doing the front's a little harder, right? Because we don't really know how much we've got in terms of travel.
Right.
Every bike has in the owner's handbook how much wheel travel you have for the rear and the front. So in the front, if we were to extend the forks completely and measure, that'd give us a distance. Then you look in the book. So if the forks fully extended were 150 mil, and the book said 120 millimeters of travel, 30 millimeters up is bottom out. Every bike is different. Some are 0, it will go all the way, and some are 25 millimeters, even 30 millimeters up, that you can't use because the chrome tube is longer than the outer tube on upside down forks. So one of the first things you must do, and I know you want to get that owner's manual covered in cobwebs and spiders, but see how much travel you have. So let's go to the front.
And you're going to do the same thing in the front.
Well, I'm just going to see where we're at now, because there's a whole other process to this, which is why there's over 400 videos for people to go watch that I've put out over the years. So right now, the bike sits under its own weight, and it is, oh, we got inches and millimeters, so we'll keep it to inches. We'll do it the other way. It is 2, 3, 4.5 inches. All right, Ralph, take a seat again. Then we got to pull it down and make it sit. So that's 4.5 inches.
What were you doing right there? You were compressing it as
compressing
far as it'll
it? Yeah, because when you sat down, the back moved more than the front. So you are 3.5 inches, just shy of. So the back compresses more than the front. So what does that mean in regards to the pitch of the motorcycle? The back compresses more than the front.
Oh, I've taken it. Yes. So
So
my wheel is
rub that out. Put a nice little eagle there. Because we have a Harley. You've got a chopper, you have a cruiser.
Right.
Because the back of the bike is softer than the front. Great for wheelies.
yeah.
Nightmare in the corners, because as you put the gas on, you take weight away from the front tire. Not good.
Right, because it affects your braking.
Everything. Because you're riding around with a bike where the weight of the motorcycle is pitched at the back of the bike. So the only way to get grip in the front is to roll off the throttle through the corner or brake through the corner until you see your exit and go. Is that any way to ride a motorcycle? No.
No.
Your experience is defined by the settings in the bike. So one of the things many people say is factories know best. So who's this built for? Who was the rider? How tall were they? What did they weigh? Where did they ride? How fast did they ride? What were the quality of the roads? What time of year was it? Is this truly what was on the bike when it was tested? We don't get that data. We get no information.
Right.
So we get that. So fix it. So in this case, we need to stiffen the shock up and bring it into parallel with the front so it fits. But given your weight, if we stiffen that shock up much more, there's no static sag at all, so you're going to get beaten to death. So before you even put the key in this to turn it and ride it, we need a much stiffer shock spring for your weight.
So that's something I probably should have thought about before I went and spent the money on this motorcycle.
That's all you need. Everywhere you go, any bike you want to look at, get your tape measure out. What is this bike doing for me when I sit on it? Is it soft here? Is it soft here? Is it totally stiff? Is it rigid in the back and soft in the front? What have I got?
Okay.
And then based on that measurement, you can decide, okay, well, can I fix that? Well, in this case, because the shock spring is what it is, and we have almost no static sag at all, for your weight, no.
Wow, that's interesting. So I just spent over $10,000 on a motorcycle that probably really doesn't fit me.
That? isn't proportional to your weight. Fit is a different thing. We're going to do that next.
Okay, so that last bit about, the bike being appropriate for your weight, proportional to your weight, that was really interesting, and I'm curious, has that changed the way you look at bikes, the bikes that you think you might want to have in your garage?
When I first started riding, I rode sports bikes only. So it was always the same and set up the same. As I'm getting a little bit older, I start getting into cruisers and supermotos and stuff like that. So yes, it's important for me to make sure that I choose the bike correctly so that I'm comfortable when I ride.
Okay. It's really interesting. Have you guys ever, hopped on a bike, taken it for a ride and just decided it wasn't for you? Or have you had a bike in your garage that you ended up just selling because you couldn't get that feeling quite right?
Right, yeah.
If so, man, tell us about it. We want to hear that story. I'll be honest, Ralph, man, I want to keep going. That bit about fit, I know it's vital, and I know Dave has got a lot more to say about getting that bike situated perfectly for me.
Absolutely. And so this is great because you rode it before it got set. He's going to set it up for you, and then you're going to ride it. So you'll get to see the progression of how it changes not only the bike's handling, but the way that you perceive riding.
That's fantastic. I can't wait.